Dave, it's an honor and privilege to be here again.
Hey, Joe, good to see you again. And thank you for setting aside the time to talk to me, but also the members of the Scuba community. So what I was hoping we could talk about today is sort of the follow-up, the aftermath to something that we did back at the end of March, which was the de-escalation webinar. And
yes,
as an outcropping from that webinar, brainSHARE has put together a bundle of 2 courses: the De-escalate course, which is led by Doug Noll, who wrote the book, and the communication series, which is a strict brainSHARE series. And I wanted to maybe have us talk about that a little bit. So it makes sense as to why to do that, I think, because the de-escalate side really addresses this, something that's part of every communication, which is human emotion. And the communication series addresses personality styles, modalities for learning, the structure of messaging, and all that sort of stuff. So that covers both sides of the equation, yeah?
Yeah. So it's you know, when Doug, when we met Doug, and I'll speak for myself, when I met Doug, and he started talking about this, I'm like, oh yeah, that's NLP stuff. And he's like, nope. I said, oh, that's active listening something. And like, nope. He goes, it's affect labeling. And I'm like, what? And then I read the book and I went through and I'm like, this is unique. This actually changes the game. And that's why I was so excited about putting this into our curriculum. Because there's those times that no matter what you do, you cannot communicate. I don't care, active listening, NLP technique, everything. When someone's up there in that escalation mode, they can't function in a logical manner. And scientifically, it's been proven.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And so that, by bringing that down to where communications can transpire, and then utilizing the DISC and the VAC communication techniques, then we get into a modality of being able to communicate across the different modalities.
Right.
But you have to bring it down first when somebody's up there.
Because that's when you can start to solve the problems or come up with ideas to be able to address whatever the circumstance is for your business, for your family, for your personal life, for your whatever the interactions might be at that high intense emotional level, whether it's a negative emotion or a positive emotion. You're one of the things that Doug mentioned, and this was real interesting for and the folks who are watching this, if they haven't seen the webinar yet, they should go do that because it's still accessible online. He mentioned how the prefrontal cortex, which is the executive function area of the brain, when there is this high level of emotional activity, that part of the brain is pretty much shut down.
It shuts off.
Non-functional, which means your ability to assess and to logically communicate about whatever the topic is, it is not possible. Whether it's a super positive emotion or a super negative emotion, it has the same impact.
That's right. And we've all experienced this, and we know it. I've seen stats that it takes anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour for someone to come down where you can actually have a conversation with them. And I personally have walked out of meetings because I knew I could not function in a logical manner, and I was going to, excuse my language, rip somebody's head off, metaphorically.
No, I get it, but in that scenario, it take 20 minutes or so or longer for someone to get the things back, calm down. In a lot of situations, that's way too long. That you can't effectively handle whatever the current situation is if it takes that long. And that's the beauty of the affect labeling technique, because it allows you to bring that down in 60 seconds to 90 seconds, which is a lot faster than 30 minutes.
And really realistically, if something's going to take 30 minutes for you to calm down, you're scheduling the meeting for the next day or next week.
Right.
Okay, so
you put off the whole situation and lengthen the entire scenario.
Exactly. Whereas if you can resolve that right then and there by bringing that by de-escalating the situation to a logical function, and then utilize your other communication tools, all of a sudden you make things happen in a much more efficient manner.
Right.
And that's what it's about.
Let's go back to the brainSHARE course, the communication series, because there's a tremendous amount of material in there. And I was, maybe we can just do a little overview of what some of that is. Actually, I've got brainSHARE.online called up here. Maybe we could go into that and look at what the communication course has to offer. Does that seem like a smart thing to do?
I think it sounds great. And,
okay.
And we can talk about that. When you look at DISC, you've got the 4 personality profiles while you're pulling that up. And why I like DISC, and there's a lot of different personality profiles. There's Bank, there's Myers-Briggs, there's the cheerleaders and the presidents, and there's all kinds of different ones out there. They're all good. They all work. So I'm not emotionally tied to DISC. It's just easiest for me to teach and implement. So that's why I like that.
So I pulled up the information on the bundle, and we can talk about that a little bit more detail later. But when you go into the communication course itself, there's a lot. I mean, you can see a tremendous amount of information that's in here. One of the things, we talk about VAC, which is the modalities, which is visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Is that right?
That's right. That's your learning styles and how you like to learn, how you like to communicate. You see what I mean? You hear what I'm saying? Does that feel right?
Yeah. And then DISC, we use that acronym a lot, but I'm not sure everybody understands what the D, I, S, and C stands for. So could you kind of explain that a little bit?
Sure. High Ds are drivers. They get stuff done. They're outgoing. They're task oriented. Get out of my way, and they thrive on competition. They thrive on almost I wouldn't say conflict, but they're not afraid of it, and they get stuff done, and that's important to a team. High I are influencers. These are the outgoing people person, the typical salesperson. They like to have fun. They like to communicate. They like to negotiate conflict. They go, but they also have a little challenge with time. Now, and then high S's are steady. People person and reserved, go with the flow, nice and steady, not big changes. And C is calculating or cautious. I've heard both, but they're task oriented and reserved, very detail oriented, dot the I's and cross the T's.
Right.
So where a lot of communication issues problem is crossed. High I's, high C's, they clash. High D's and high S's clash. They also bring balance to the team.
And this is an interesting point that you just made in terms of they clash, because that does not mean that clash is a highly emotional sort of situation where you have to de-escalate. It could be.
It could be.
But what it really means to me is that if you understand the way someone else likes to receive the messaging, it's like if you're going to breakfast, some people like their eggs scrambled, some of them like it over easy, some of them want them poached. Okay. If you know how your person likes to eat their eggs, that's the way you're going to prepare them. Okay. So this communication mechanism is similar when you understand the DISC profiles and the VAC modalities. Does that make sense?
That's it exactly. It's your job to ensure the message is coming across. I hear this a lot. Well, they weren't listening.
Yeah.
Well, you weren't talking in a way that resonated with them.
Right.
And we all have that ability once we understand how to change our method of communicating to get the message across, because it's our job as a communicator to do that.
Right. Very cool. Well, this is what is in the communications course. And when we go back and look at the overall de-escalation and communication bundle, we put together both of these courses for the price of one, really the price of the de-escalation course.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll speak for myself. I wish I would have had this 30 or 40 years ago.
Yeah.
It would have definitely saved me well more than $500 in emotional trauma.
Absolutely. And I mean, I can't tell you in my career too, my sales career, how many times I've had situations in trying to present a product or service to someone who is not happy or angry about something. They may not be angry with me. They may not be angry about what we're talking about, but they're angry about something. And if you can bring them down so that you can communicate with them about what's going on, you don't have to get into their, particulars, but it's like, hey, you're angry, blah, 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 and then you go through the process. Then it's a phenomenal what it can do. It truly is.
Well, and in my experiences, it's usually not one thing. It's a combination of a lot of things. But once they're in that state, you can't communicate. It's bringing them out of that state so that communications can transpire and you can move the business forward, your personal life forward, your
Right.
family relationship forward. But when you're at that state, you're escalated, you can't think logically, nobody can.
Yeah, exactly. No, we've set the bundle up as a temporary thing, but I don't know. We may end up making it a standard offering because those two courses are so powerful together that it might just make sense to make it a standard offering. But
Well,
that's your decision. We'll
yeah,
talk about that at a later time.
yeah. We'll get some feedback from our clients. They're the ones that are most important. And if this is helping them, then we'll do whatever makes the most sense for you and the business community and the world. I mean, that's what we're here for, is to help the universe. So it's
Fantastic. Well, Joe,
love.
thanks again for being here at a a decompression session with Scuba. Appreciate it. And hey, have a wonderful vacation. We'll see you later.
We'll see you later. Thanks, Dave.